Are you unable to concentrate on the tasks at hand? Do you need help focusing more or leveling up your game? Here's a tip. Try Cognizin Citicoline, clinically studied to support mental energy, focus, memory, and attention. Cognizin supports brain health and supplies the brain with the energy it needs to stay sharp. Cognizin is a leading nootropic, featured in over 200 products. This podcast is powered by Cognizin. Visit cognizin.com to learn more and find a product to help you fuel your day.
Ready to achieve great heights? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Power Your Performance, the podcast where we dive deep with leaders in the gaming world and beyond and learn the techniques they use to power their lives. I am your host, Gary Kleinman.
So Power Your Performance has the pleasure today, on behalf of Cognizin, to welcome Kevin Dawidowicz of CoachMePlus. Welcome.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. And you are calling in from?
Oh, yeah, we're up in Buffalo, New York. Born and raised, and luckily was able to start our company here and stay here really over the past 10 years.
That's fantastic. So before we get into CoachMePlus, which is just a phenomenal platform, especially in its current application and where it's going and everything else, your story is fascinating from a long-term interest in health, wellness, and fitness. So was that when you were playing Little League and your parents said, hey, you got to stretch, and then you go, hey, it's working? Or where was that first moment of, hey, this is cool?
So it actually started with my grandfather, who is currently 86 years old and still a fitness, enthusiast. He was, we were growing up, and he was running marathons and 5Ks and races and things like that. And one of the first events I got to do with him was the hot dog run, and it was like a kid's, half-mile run, with Grandpa. And got to do that, but it was one of these things where his lifestyle choices around growing his own food and staying fit and things like that just kind of became part of who you are in your lifestyle, and that transcended into sports, athletics. I played high school football and hockey and things like that, and I always had a pretty deep interest in fitness from a technical standpoint, right? Like I'm myself, like I'm never perfect when it comes to eating and fitness and everything else like that, but I do really, really love digging into the data and love digging into the, techniques and tactics behind fitness. And in the late 90s, I got out of high school, got into university. I had some friends that were competitive bodybuilders, and I just remember like tracking meals with them and tracking sets and reps in the gyms and everything else like that, and literally doing it all in notebooks and notepads. And that, again, just continued like this cycle of like being around the space. When I started my first company back in 2002, we were doing a lot of CD-ROMs and DVDs and things like that. And the Buffalo Sabres strength coach had gotten a hold of one of our CDs and was asking if we could put fitness workouts on there for his players in the off season. And for us, it was like a natural fit, like super easy. Just walked in there, had a conversation with the guy and started talking about rep schemes and sets and, nutrition guidance and hydration guidance and educational materials and things like that. And he looked at me, he's like, do you have a degree in this? And I'm like, no, it's just, part of where we've always been. So like my just, general understanding of fitness and science and wellness shaped through the lens of this, seasoned, very intelligent strength coach who had been working with professional athletics, really kind of formed the first, basis of what CoachMePlus was. And it literally was a CD-ROM that players would pop in, bring their laptop to the gym and do all of their workouts because they could watch the workout videos. There was no iPhone back in 2004, 2005. So that was the genesis of how we got started and where we are. And we started the company based on the opportunity.
Well, I mean, it's interesting though when you say 2004 that a professional athletic team, hockey of all things, actually was thinking about the formalization of training in a way that was personalized for their roster. And I mean, and that was pretty early in many respects. I mean, that was long before they had Pilates teachers and nutritionists and everybody else that was part of the tribe. But before we get to that, what you just said struck me very interesting, that your grandfather was interested in diet and his own foods and growing his own foods. And I mean, that is remarkable. So did that pass on to your parents, who then brought it into the house, or were your folks going, no, we're driving through McDonald's because Kevin's got practice today?
Yeah, it was a little bit more of that, right? Like the matter of convenience versus lifestyle. It's a little bit easier when you're older and you don't have the kids running around the house. So that dichotomy is kind of in play all the time, right? Like, we're going to order pizza, we're going to go out. Mom cooked a lot and did a lot, and we had small gardens and things like that. But that was a if you had to grab and go, you went and grabbed and go and went. And you kind of have to de-educate yourself after a while on the convenience of food versus being deliberate with your choices. So once you're in that cycle of let's just go to McDonald's or let's go grab food quickly, you find yourself just leaning on that crutch as opposed to meal prep and planning and things like that. And it's interesting, now through my own daughters, I'm always aware of the quick fix versus making sure that we're preparing good foods and things like that. So yeah, it's
it's almost like full circle, because you see your grandfather, who was probably very early on in terms of growing his own food, and maybe not in Buffalo, but certainly in the larger metropolitan worlds that I grew up in, that nobody was. I mean, nutrition was all just food. Right. And now if you look at today, you have all the meal delivery services that are saying farm to table, and they're measuring calories, and they're looking at ingredients and whether it's Mediterranean or whatever that happens to be. And I find it interesting of the circle, from where your grandfather started to where we are now. And then there are people like us in between saying, thank God for Happy Meals. Right.
Well, very, very, very interesting. To stay on this line, my great grandparents had a farm out here in the Western New York area, from the very early 1900s, and they would bring their goods, literally pack the truck with produce and bring it to the local market over here in Buffalo, the Broadway Market. So for whatever reason, that's always been kind of, in our circle. And now we live next to one of the parks here in the city of Buffalo, and they have a weekly farmers market. So the girls, my daughters are always looking forward to, let's go to the farmers market. Let's get our fruit. And they're always picking raspberries and, whatever it is that they want to eat for the week. So you kind of try to bring that lifestyle kind of choice back to them and do that early enough so that they're,
Well, yeah, it's interesting to say that, because even where I live in LA, there are lots of farmers markets, but every Saturday and certainly Sundays, it is incredibly crowded, and everybody grabbing all the farm produce and the fresh eggs and all the other things that were nice. So, and with that thinking, then when you look at your platform, it obviously goes hand in hand. So as you roll out the platform, for Coach, and I wouldn't get into it because the applications are fascinating, not only from its content, but the varied applications for it in sport, in personal, in military, and what have you, which is fascinating and obviously necessary. Is that somewhat diet related also? Is there a food element to the content?
Yeah, absolutely. So the genesis of what we did, right? CoachMePlus as a application for tracking workouts quickly became a data platform, right? The MyFitnessPals and things like that of the world kind of like hit their mark and allowed you to track meals for the consumer market, but nothing was really being served in that mindset to the professional sports space, or, obviously not in the military space as well. So when we took CoachMePlus to the military, we had to, number one, rebrand it, because, you have, like, if you buy a Boeing 747, it's definitely not Air Force One, even though it's the same company, right? Like you need to have a certain level of difference in what you do. So we created what's called the Warrior Performance Platform, WP2, which includes a lot of enhanced security features and things like that you have to deal with when you get into the military. But it's interesting that our first step into the military was related to nutrition. So Navy Supply Command was our first customer, and Navy Supply Command is known for like the guys who like bring lettuce to your ship, right? Like they're the supply group that like literally like supplies all the meals, all of the logistics and things like that around the Navy. And they were looking for a kiosk experience where people would be able to take their food, barcode scan it, boop, get that information into their profile and track it along with other activities. So what we did was we built that first experience hand in hand with the Navy to actually have meal tracking as part of that experience. The military is really good at producing educational materials, but not quite so good at like delivering educational materials and, acronyms and, meetings and just all this educational content. Like they're bombarded with like mission critical information, but they're also trying to keep wellness and health in mind. And, with the obesity issue in America showing up in the military, the Navy was and continues to be the heaviest population. The highest levels of obesity are in the Navy. So how do you reinforce educational content along with a good experience that people are going to use? And, naturally, just thinking about doing it in your mobile device is the way to deliver that. So now you can track meals, track educational materials related to nutrition, hydration, physical fitness, and other activities, but also deliver military-specific educational information. So they have what's called the Go for Green program. And the Go for Green program simplifies it into that like stoplight kind of experience: red, yellow, and green foods, like, broccoli's green, chicken breasts are green, things that you should, continue to go after and things like that. And then, of course, like bacon is red because it's high in sodium. So now when a sailor opens up that device and looks up bacon, the red square shows up and says, hey, by the way, because what are they doing while they're going through the chow line? They're doing this. They're not looking at the posters on the walls or anything else like that. They are in their phones as they're walking through. So meet them where they are, deliver that educational content, make it an experience that actually works really well, really quickly, and you're off to the races. And we've been able to take the WP2 platform and go from the Navy into the Air Force, into the Army, and now are expanding into other forces. A key to that too is, working in the military requires experience. We learned really quickly when it comes to technology to, find the right partners and find the right organizations to work with. And we found a company that had been working in the military for quite some time, TIAG, and they've been an excellent partner, because when it comes to working in the DoD, you have to have all these things that are just, the contracting, the program managers, the security, and all these other issues that we're just simply not experts in. Right. And we brought those guys in as a partner, and they've been excellent to be able to do that with us.
But why is it that the Navy comes in first in obesity? Is that from recruiting and they're coming in heavy, or are they more sedentary, which I don't know that they would be or would not be on a ship? It's just interesting that there's even an obesity category, so to speak, and the Navy's winning at that.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it winning, but I mean, you're right. They are certainly leading from the front. I think a part of it has to do with like what your lifestyle is like, right? Like if you're on a ship, if you're on a submarine, well, how much space do you have to engage in fitness activities when you're deployed for a long period of time? Are you gonna seek out comfort foods for morale's sake? Like where are you able to actually engage in these activities? Whereas, the Army, like PT and fitness is like drilled into their daily activities because they need to be on the ground, they need to be able to rock, they need to be able to run, do these activities. Where on the ship, like, you're manning a station, you're looking at a radar screen, you're doing these activities on a ship that, don't require a lot of space or a lot of mobility. So they do have a lot of people who are sitting and doing that. And the Air Force has the same problem. So you end up with these, these rates of obesity and sedentary lifestyle and things like that really closely mimic the American rates in lifestyle, because most folks are sitting in, like you and I are sitting in chairs right now, taking this call, and I'll likely sit in a chair for about 8 hours today. So,
well, and that's why it's interesting to me when you look at what we look at often is in gaming, right? So gamers are without a doubt, right? Especially professional gamers. They're the extended gaming sessions, and that's not only during tournament but practice, and they can't really get up, right? Because if you get up, you can't get up in the middle of a game. So there's an application for all of this for gamers, which is one of the many things that's fascinating to me. Because in gaming, the diet has always been meal replacement, right? For a lot of gamers, washed down with a Red Bull, right?
And fair enough. That's exactly what's happening in the military. Like the bangs and the Red Bulls, and like all these things are like you walk into a briefing room, and that's what's in everybody's hands. Black cup of coffee. Wash it down with a Red Bull, and get off on your day. And, the military is constantly reinforcing education on caffeine issues and so on. So you mentioned delayed entry, which was, or into, recruiting and getting into the Navy, which is where we've actually seen amazing success with what we've done. So the population of folks that are getting into the Navy right now, they're 17 and 18 years old. The last couple of years, they've been locked down because of the pandemic. A lot of these folks are, in fact, gamers, because it's that age of population where kids are coming in. So they're used to Flamin' Hot Cheetos, Red Bulls, and late night sessions. And what we've done, we just completed a 18-month pilot in the Navy. Delayed entry program. These are people who want to get into the Navy, but they might either have health, like obesity issues, they might have educational issues, they might have other things that they're not quite ready to get into the military yet. And if you look across the entire board of military recruiting right now, they are dramatically missing their mark. Like the Army is off by about 40% right now for people who are going to get into the military. So how do we improve the delayed entry kids from, wanting to become, future sailors and Army and whatever force they want to get into? So for the past 18 months, we've been running this pilot, and we were able to track physical fitness activities, provide educational materials, and track nutrition. And the study findings were mimicked exactly what the American diet was. And I wasn't kidding about the Flaming Hot Cheetos. The first meal that was tracked in this population was a bag of Flaming Hot Cheetos. So you're sitting there going, okay, this is exactly what we're dealing with. Like, how do we improve this? And what the Navy Delayed Entry Program did was it provided insight into lifestyle information that the Navy never had before. And it closely mimicked, again, exactly what's going on across the U.S. population right now. Gamers, you name it, like they're all doing the same thing, and that's sitting in a chair, scrolling Facebook, playing a game, slamming back caffeine, eating poor foods and making poor choices. So the success of the program was in not only being able to, for the first time ever, track that information and show what's happening. It answers the question pretty immediately, like, well, what's everybody eating? Well, it looks like garbage, right? Like it's like, how do we improve that? But then they were able to provide intervention and actually give them guidance on how to eat better, how to sleep more, how to, understand what a circadian rhythm is and actually live in that box and be filled with educational materials to help them actually improve and get through the delayed entry program. This is a pretty amazing outcome, but of the population that we work with, nobody dropped out because of physical fitness activity limitations, meaning that
That's
everybody
great.
who went through used the application in the right way to actually improve and make it through delayed entry, which was like an unbelievable success. So the Navy is now expanding that into a larger population. It'll be another larger group of people, another 2-year pilot. They're actually taking it to other locations, so other delayed entry programs, to include Army, Marines, folks that other, also have recruiting problems, and really meet people where they are.
Right.
This younger population, I say younger, like I'm an old guy, I'm kind of getting there. But, where are they all day? They're here, right? Like they're in their phone, they're in their mobile devices. So if you meet them where they are and provide information that's engaging, provide easy ways to track if their wearable device is going in, if they can quickly scan a barcode on that, packaged food that they have, or quickly look up a banana if they're eating, healthy, then you can give them that feedback to help them understand exactly like where to improve parts of their lifestyle related to sleep, wellness, mental readiness, nutrition, physical activities. It's a very large, lifestyle kind of mindset.
And is the content gamified in terms of incentive achievements?
So it's a very interesting mindset that we're just getting into. So we've begun to implement challenges in recent groups that we've worked with in the military. So currently we're working in the Army, and one of those groups has this program that has, it's a holistic health program, and the leaders of those groups are now implementing like push-up challenges and step challenges and plank challenges, and all these Instagram style things that you normally see are now being done on their phones from command leaders people that they trust and that they know. And basically, like, when Sergeant Smith runs up and he's like, hey, I just did the 1 mile challenge, like this is how fast I went, how fast can you go? And then you show the leaderboard. That's that gamification for creating community and creating competition. And that's something that we've been, naturally doing in professional sports and, corporate wellness and, athletics and fitness for a long time, but never really thought about bringing that mindset over to, into the military. But, it works.
It sounds like it. But currently, it's really a B2B app, so to speak. It's not available on an individual consumer basis. Is there thought to be able to make it applicable for a gaming team, so to speak? And there's no shortage of those. And they're hiring nutritionists anyway, but I don't see most of them following it.
The smart ones will. So it's interesting, right? Like you take a look at athletic endeavors that would be considered fringe that have become more mainstream, right? And gaming is certainly one of those where, how does it become more professionalized? And the minute that you start putting, dollars in the room, people will figure out ways to improve their condition, whether that be, whether that be physical, sleep, nutrition, supplements, you name it.
Yeah, and certainly there's an understanding and a receptiveness to a combination of all of that calories is not the only mark of health, nor is weight. It is sleep. It is blood work. It is personalized nutrition that is, at the forefront of really understanding somebody's body makeup and creating programs and activities and exercises for that. I know you've got some on the app. I know you've got a couple applications in place, which I want to see, and I want you to share with us. What I wouldn't say what's your favorite. Which one do you think is the best to show first, and what are the things that we're tracking?
So right now, what I have in front of me is, a very basic dashboard, right? Like, how am I doing for the day, and like, what does my daily information look like? So it could be my heart rate, it could be steps, it could be nutrition, and so on. But that's just the context of the information to be able to understand, my fitness level, my fitness activities, or my wellness levels and wellness activities. The thing that we do best is provide data in the context of who you are and when you are. So data for the sake of data doesn't mean anything. Capturing information and showing up on a leaderboard or whatever it might be doesn't really kind of close the loop on what's going on. The reason that we're a B2B application is because there's somebody on the other side of the application, albeit a coach or a nutritionist, a dietitian, or whomever, who looks at that information and helps you understand the context of what's happening. So a lot of consumer apps and technology and things like that, like over the past 2 years, you've seen like this massive heat of like cool new tech, whether it be, the Pelotons of the world or, tonals or other, things to get, into your home and have the fitness experience happening there with some data connected to it. But it all kind of goes back to that same kind of mindset that happens whenever you have an application on your phone, or in my case an Apple Watch or Ring or Whoop or whatever it might be. After a while, the effect of the technology notifying you or telling you like it's time to go to bed or whatever it might be begins to fade, right? And this happens in every technology company that comes out there. There's a lot of usage up front, and then it begins to slowly fade away because it competes with all the other apps and tech that's going on and notifications happening right here. Like, hey, Facebook and, Instagram and TikTok and just everything's happening. So like, oh, and I got to do that workout thing too, or whatever it might be. So when Apple Watch tells me it's time to go to bed, I just ignore it, right? Because so like I got 2 kids at home, I've got a business I'm running, I've got a lot of travel for work, and I'm not going to bed right now. I can't. I'm in the airport. What am I supposed to do? So closing the loop on that experience and having somebody on the other side is key. And whether that be that coach who understands what I'm doing, right? The fact that I was on a plane last night, I got in at about 2 a.m. If my coach knows that, he'll be able to help me either modify my programming, make sure I get a nap in the middle of it, like just whatever I need to perform today and be able to actually do my workout. I can't go in 100%. I'll tell you right now, I'm tired. Right. So like, how do we actually deal with that? And having a coach on the other side helps you close that loop. And that really brings this whole mindset of taking the data and creating this hybrid fitness experience. I can be in my gym, I could be at home, I can be, in the corporate wellness environment, I can be at a training facility. It doesn't matter where I am, as long as that other person's on the other side to help me take that data and use it the right way. I've done my job as CoachMePlus and the WP2 or whatever, platform. I've done that job to be able to really like close that loop and actually provide context to that information.
And so are you finding compliance from the coach and on the corporate side
absolutely.
To synthesize that information and make sure it's getting to the user?
Yeah, absolutely. So I show you the data component, right? So once I have the data, now what? Well, provide me information and context based on the experience I'm in right now. And whether that's coming from a centralized source that says, hey, here's some nutritional information or guidance or whatever it might be, or if that's personalized, like this is a military group where they're using it as a way to, create camaraderie and, they're actually like posting memes and things like that. Like understanding like how to engage with me, either in my group setting or personally, changes the experience for me. So now I know, okay, I've got sleep issues today. My coach sends me some, new guidance on, making sure I get a nap in, or making sure, I don't crush 5 coffees instead of 1 today, or whatever it is. But it basically helped me, stay on track without getting off cycle. So now you're beginning to provide educational materials on top of the tracking of information. And then finally, like, what am I actually going to do today with my workout? And if I go into the phone application here, I pull today's, exercise program. I've got all of my sets and reps and everything else like that I'm supposed to do. If I don't know how to do a specific movement, there's a video for me to understand like what that workout is supposed to be. And not only do I have educational materials to help me, but now I've got specific fitness activities to deal with today based on what happened last night. My plane was delayed. It sucked. All my planes are delayed right now. My plane was delayed. I got about 4 hours of sleep. Girls still had to go to daycare this morning. Like, it was just like, it was a bit of a crazy kind of morning. I can also close the feedback and give them additional information. Like, am I feeling any pain or soreness anywhere? Like, some.
So it really gets to be individualized. I mean, it gets to be really truly on a finite, individual, personalized basis. One of the other things that you showed earlier before we started actually recording, which I find interesting, especially in light of what Skins does and some of our products and the new one that's coming out in the hydration and electrolyte world, is so what CoachMePlus can do is actually monitor specific elements like hydration, and I think that's. And so an athletic team or a branch of the military, if they want to track hydration of somebody, or they want to track endurance or something else, you have through the app the ability to actually slice that out, so to speak, and measure that individually, because it's important, especially in stick and ball sports, and probably in combat and training in certain aspects of the military. Hydration is just a massive issue, and I know you have a deep history and education and experience in hydration, and nobody really understands it, right? Because they think you drink water and you're hydrated, but that's just a small portion of it. It's electrolytes and what have you, and the balance of all those and the right ones. How does that work? Because I know I saw it briefly, and I want to see it again. So, show me the hydration stations.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a great example of. I'll give you 3 like super quick examples, and they're all doing the same thing. The amount of there's ways to track fluid loss as part of your rehydration activities, right? So if I go do a workout right now and I weigh myself on a scale, it'll be I'm gonna lie, it's 205. No, 210, right? I'll stand on the scale. I weigh 210 pounds. I go do a workout. Personally, I'm a big fluid loss guy. Like, I lose a lot of sweat and everything else like that. I'll lose 2 pounds in a workout without, like, very, very easily. So that looks like weight loss, doesn't it? That's great. No, it's not. It's actually fluid loss. So how do we replenish our fluids properly before your next fitness activity, right? Understanding that not only fluid replacement is important, but also electrolyte replacement is important. And what we do is, in one way of actually working this, you track your pre-workout body weight, and then go do your workout session, and then you step on the scale again and track your post-workout body weight. And based on the amount of fluid that you've actually lost, we have this shopping cart style experience, which says you need to make all of these numbers green. Now, you might not know what sodium, potassium, and chloride, or other electrolyte values are, but they certainly know how to make some numbers green. Like, right. How do I do that? So what they do after they weigh out is that they are provided with a cart that shows them the values up here. So I need to replace 2 pounds of fluid. I need to make those electrolyte values green. And if I grab a couple of fluid replacements here, you'll see I'm beginning to green out the actual things. Make it super simple for somebody to understand. Grab the things that they need to grab and basically replenish their hydration for the next session. It's a very easy kind of close the loop kind of experience. The problem with most electrolyte, replacement drinks is that they're loaded with sugar, they're loaded with calories and things like that. So how do you make smart choices? And educating through the application helps you do that. So one of the effects that we seem to see happen is we will set up these scale stations. So this is the Indianapolis Colts. They have their offense and defense going through. This is the 82nd Airborne. They have their folks going through there, and they will step on these Bluetooth scales. The information goes into their profile automatically, and they can go basically track their rehydration options. And the effect that we've seen through this is obviously people are replenishing hydration and people are replenishing fluids after their workouts, which is fantastic. But we're also seeing the intraday body weight changes shrink, meaning that very early on, there's 3, 4, 5 pound differences. People are like losing tons of fluid during workouts just because they're just doing what they normally do. But once the education kind of gets reinforced as they're going through these experiences, we're seeing that intraday change shrink, meaning that they're actually now replacing fluids while they're working out instead of afterwards. So the behavior change is actually occurring through the usage of the system, which is amazing because you're like, okay, I got you to do what I want you to do and make sure that you're, staying on top of your fluid replacement before it becomes a problem.
Right. I mean, and that's going to stop, future muscle cramps and all the things that come with that, and fatigue,
headaches, fogginess, fatigue,
all of that.
Yeah. There's plenty of times personally, because I lose a lot of fluid for whatever reason personally, where you're feeling just kind of foggy or whatever, and you're like, is it that I'm tired or is it whatever? And the first thing for me personally, I always go after is either a replacement packet of whatever brand, I happen to be using at that time, drink back my fluids. And if that brings me back, which it kind of does pretty quickly, which is very interesting, then I know it's not tired, it's just I was dehydrated. Like that's a very affecting kind of personal thing for me. And we see that in performance in athletics, not only cramps, but actual tears, sprains, soft tissue injuries, and things like that are, massive reductions in those when you hydrate.
No question.
It's a very, the Gatorade commercials are, they're putting a lot of sugar in there and things like that, but like there's a reason that these guys are pounding fluids at halftime. Like it's just, you have to do it. So
and what's interesting is, yes, they do it at halftime, but there is a simplistic way to at least during the game keep it that at a minimum level without consuming hordes of fluids, because as a football player, one, you don't want to get bloated by gulping water. Right, and then you got to go to the bathroom, and there's really no place to go on the field, and those kind of things, and that's what part of what Skins is addressing is that. But it's fascinating to see that sports is looking at that. There's such a huge application in this in gaming, especially on the collegiate level, which is growing by leaps and bounds. And how easy is it for a new activity like a gaming organization to go to CoachMePlus and go, hey, this is what our needs are. It's a little bit different than 345-pound linemen coming at you, but no less important and critical for the activities that we go through. Is it an easy application?
It is, but the ease has to play out through itself in understanding the complexity of the organization that you're working with. Meaning that if this was just an app, like it would say, hey, it's a one-size-fits-all for whatever you need to do. And that will continuously fail. Like there's no two organizations that do things the same way. we have to understand the rules around how your experience happens to know how to best fit to give you what you need. For a gaming group, what's the situation? Okay, situation is this. They're going to sit in their chair for, 6 hours. It's going to be a high focus, high level hand-eye coordination activity. In that high level hand-eye coordination activity, here's where we begin to see fades of, focus and things like that during these periods. So we need to make sure that we get the right nutrition timed. We need to make sure that, like you said, can't go to the bathroom in the middle of the game.
Right.
So how do you make sure that you're hydrated well before the activity so that you're not like pounding fluids right before, your game and now you gotta go to the bathroom 15 minutes in. So like knowing those things helps us configure the system around those rules. And I'll give you a really good example. We have a mining company in Australia. This is our corporate wellness kind of, experience that we work with. This mining company for the past year and a half has had their miners who, have a very specific role. They're literally going down 5,000 feet into the earth on a 45-minute trip to sit in 90-degree heat and like dig gold out of the earth. And they do it for, 10-hour, 12-hour shifts, 10 days at a time. So their fluid loss is like dramatic, right? Like it's a massive amount of issues, like with, replenishment of hydration and other things. Nutrition is out. Getting guys to eat in a cave 5,000 feet down, right? Like good luck. So what they've implemented the hydration station there. And that group now, like before they put their work boots on and all their gear and everything else like that, they're weighing in. They're going, making sure that all their bags are packed with all the things that they need to get through their day so that they're hydrating, that they're eating right and doing all these things during their workouts. I'm sorry.
Well, it is a workout. It is a workout.
Yeah. Pulling gold out of the earth is not easy, apparently.
No.
And, for that 10-hour shift, they come back and they weigh out, and the amount of fluid that they lost are replenishing before they go back in there again. And then we're giving them guidance on sleep and all these other things that they need to do to be ready to prepare to go and do this again. And they've gone from, this 1 year experience and one location to now expanding to 14 locations and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of workers. So we had to learn with that organization what it is that they're dealing with, right? Like I never would have assumed any of those things until you actually sit on the ground and do that. So for any kind of organization that's saying, I need to shape human performance or health promotion around my population and what they deal with on a daily basis, you've got to be able to configure that experience and and deliver it to the user.
Well, the possibilities are endless.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, you look at the all the fire departments, right? I mean, not only are they carrying massive amounts of weight and they're on their feet and everything else, they're going into extremely difficult conditions that are underscoring the dehydration because of heat and what have you. And the same with all law enforcement. I mean, there's, when construction workers and everybody else that's out there, that this is critical, and I don't think people understand how much that plays into good performance.
Yeah, when you take a look at firefighters and you say, what's the number one cause of death? I don't think anybody would guess it's heart attacks, but it is. And that's because, the fitness requirements to get into the firefighter, industry are at the front of the line, meaning that, they go through some sort of camp and they get on board with, their skills and things like that. And everybody's pretty fit. But then after that, there's no retesting. There's no standards. And some fire groups have implemented these things, but it's interesting that, you shape this in the lens of hydration. There was a study out of the Seattle Fire Department where they were able to reduce soft tissue injuries just by implementing a rehydration strategy.
Yeah. Oh, makes perfectly good sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're putting on a lot of heavy gear. You're obviously next to a lot of heat. And in that, like these guys are just dropping massive 5% of their body weight in fluids.
It's got to be. And the stress of time in performing a task. So, it's almost like football players. You got a split second to block. You got a split second to cut or throw or what have you. That's, psychological stress that's also increasing your heart rate, which then, promotes more sweating and excreting fluids and what have you. So, yeah, it's a fascinating world. Having recently got into a deep dive on hydration, it is fascinating. In the interest of time, and I promised you I wouldn't keep you all day, and I know you're tired and you got kids to pick up, and enough about me. What a fascinating conversation. I love the app. I sit here, I'm listening to it, and I go, there's some consumers listening to this and go, but why can't I get coached? Why can't you CoachMePlus? And maybe someday personalized nutrition will be such that somebody can say, hey, this is what I do every day, and then you can modify and mold a program for them.
Yeah, we've kind of taken this top-down approach, right? We started our company working in professional athletics, and we're known for working in over a third of pro sports in North America. We then took that mindset, best practice of things in professional athletics, and brought that into the military and became the WP2 platform for the military. We were able to learn lessons in working with large populations in the Department of Defense to understand that most of what we were doing wasn't related to like peak performance. It was related to like more education, more in broad population behavior change. So we took that lesson and brought it down to the gym and fitness space. We now are able to have gym owners and personal trainers download CoachMePlus, use the application for their clients, and personalize their fitness experience, whether they're at home, whether they're in the gym, whether they're on the road, wherever it may be. That coach to athlete connection is key in everything that we do. It's absolutely key in everything that we do. There's no AI and, machine learning that's going to tell you, how to reduce it. Like, no,
it's all one-to-one.
Too many variables, too many variables. So
fantastic. Kevin, thank you. Thank you. A pleasure. I'm sure we're going to circle back as you continue to find applications. We'll help you do that, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.
Kevin,
this is great.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of the MAP Esports Podcast Network and produced by Innovation Media Enterprises. Please be sure to leave us a review and follow us on your favorite podcast player.